Here are 5 predictions for the next 12 months. I'm making this video in late March 24, and at the start of this year, for several months, we saw a lot of rain in the UK and many parts saw floods. Despite this, by the summer, there will be at least 2 or 3 water companies talking about historically low levels in the reservoirs. They'll be starting to chunter on about hosepipe bans, and a few villages in the southeast will have their water delivered by the army. This will annoy some MPs and they will summon the water company bosses and say, what's going on? The water company bosses will say it's nothing to do with us, it's infrastructure, and they will say they can't afford it. So the MPs will agree to give them several £100 million. About a month later, the water companies will announce a huge dividend payout to their shareholders of several £100 million, whilst the bill payers will then start to see increased bills in order to cover the cost of the infrastructure upgrades. Labour will get voted in, which will make many voters very happy, including, by the way, many Conservative voters, because who knows what the Conservatives have been doing for the last few years. Unfortunately, within a few short months of Rachel and Keir and all the rest of them getting into power, it will quickly become apparent that this lot are no better than the last lot. They are just as dysfunctional, just as prone to waste our money on who knows what. And this will make certain lefty, old school 70s style socialists really unhappy, and they will form a breakaway group called Real Labour, and they will start to try and get rid of Keir that they never really thought was a decent leader anyway. It will look a lot like what we see with Rishi Sunak at the moment. Some people on this platform will become excited and start writing things like Jeremy Corbyn, the best Prime Minister we never had. Shortly after taking office, Rachel Reeves will announce a windfall tax on the energy companies, and many people will think this is a good move, and they'll think, yeah, we showed those energy companies, forgetting the first rule of taxation: the consumer always pays it. In fact, this happened when the last Labour Chancellor, Gordon Brown, put windfall taxes on energy companies. Everybody thought, great, Gordon Brown showed them. But of course, the energy companies then just increased the bills over the next several years. Speaking of taxes, there's going to be an increasing number of councils that suddenly say we can't afford to operate anymore. And what will be interesting is seeing who they blame. The Conservative councils will say it's Labour's fault for wasting all of the money on nonsense. The Labour councils will say it's Conservatives' fault for cutting all our budgets and not letting us have enough money. What is interesting, however, is that no matter who you decide to blame, one thing is certain: they will cut the budgets for the lollipop ladies and the gardeners and the people who do food in schools and social support and vulnerable people and old folk and young families. All of that will be cut. But the people who created all those mistakes and all those disasters as the budgets, they will not only keep their high salaries and their high bonuses, but when they then leave, a few years later, they'll become ennobled, they'll become a lord or a dame or something, and the council taxpayers will be left with 10, 12, 15% increases to pay for all that mess. Immigration, after 30 years of hugely accelerating numbers coming to the country, started of course by Tony Blair in 97-98, MPs will finally decide that rather than calling people racist or out of touch or gammons for expressing a concern, they will suddenly decide it's quite trendy and on message to query and question the numbers of people coming to the country. And they will all start using phrases like, it's right and proper that we have conversations about what is the right number of people to come to the UK.